Canton Gallo High School. We're junior, senior high school, so we have grades 7 through 12 in the building. I teach language arts and then also speech, and I'm our student council sponsor, one of our senior class sponsors, and do Scholars Bowl, forensics, and school play type stuff, and all of our professional development stuff. This is my third year there, second full year. I got hired, I student taught in the fall, and then was hired in the spring, and so that was kind of a cool, quick transition. It is possible to get a job in the spring, it's just kind of trickier. It's actually the same school I went to high school at, so that's really cool that I'm in the same room that I took English classes in. We've done a lot of remodeling, so it looks a little different. And then I jumped around a lot in college, as Terry could tell you. I probably had like 6 majors. Hutch took me 3 years, McPherson 2.5, and then I got my graduate degree through Baker. And so I just love being in the classroom, and that's one of the things I talk with a lot of people about, is if you're not addicted to being in the classroom, then teaching may be kind of boring or hard or not worthwhile. But have you guys started doing your practicums yet, or observations at least? Like are you 25 hours or 50 hours? 25? 45?
Do a total of 45.
Okay. Something that I kind of notice sometimes, because we have a lot of student teachers in our building and observers and everything, is if they have to be there for 25 hours or 45 hours, they'll sometimes work out that, okay, well now I can leave at 11:30 on Friday or something, and like I don't get that because I was just addicted to the classroom. I wanted to be there. So if you said 45 hours, but I could still be there for 70, then I'd be there for 70, even with a busy schedule, because you love it. And teaching is, in my opinion, the worst job in the world, but it's the best calling. If you look at like a job, it's terrible as far as everything you know about, but it's the best calling and profession, I really think. So that's kind of, with it, there's kind of like 3 things that have to click with that. They have to click, the teacher, whoever's working with them, you have to click, and it has to be the right time too. I tried taking basic algebra 3 times. The first time I took it, I got like a 7% or something because I just stopped trying. Next time I took it, I got like a 40% or something, and my parents finally said, we're not doing anything financially with you the rest of your life. You don't pass this class, because I wasn't trying, I just wasn't working on it. Then I got like 108% the next time, and that was the time I took it in math lab. And so those little things, it just has to be the right time. So sometimes it's easy to try to give up on a kid if you're like, oh my goodness, they're not trying right now. Well, it's not the right time in their life, maybe. So.
Before they get licensed.
A few different things. There's C-based test, which was on the sheet for questions. Every college is going to have a different cut score. Where I got my undergrad, they had a cut score of 240 points, and nobody can really tell you what in the world 240 is. Is that an A, a B, a C? I don't know what that is. But I passed it, including the math, the first try. There's 4 different parts of the test. I don't know, do you guys do a C-base here, or are you just talking C-base for transfer? Okay.
Just, yeah, wherever.
There's the English, the math, the social studies, and the science. And at McPherson College, math, science, and reading all have a very high pass rate. Most people pass their first try. The social studies probably has about a 50-50 pass-fail rate, which didn't get a chance to retake it. So, and at Mac, it costs like $20 to take it. So it's a little fee, but it's not like astronomical. And so those were fine. To do your praxis testing is a little more, studying with it. If you're going to license in elementary, you'll take the PK through 6 usually. You license in that. It's called the PLT, the Principles of Learning and Teaching. Has a cut score of 160 in Kansas, which is about a B level, from what I can tell. And then it has a pretty high pass rate. And then secondary has 7 through 12 with the 160. And then every content has a different cut score, meaning you have to get in. And so English was a cut score of 165, which is kind of like an 82-85%. I passed it my first time, and I'm not a genius or anything. So it is very doable, in my opinion. I only know of one person who has not been able to pass it even after a second try, and she has incredible test anxiety. She struggled with that forever. But I mean, like, when I say incredible, I mean incredible. So that's a different issue with that one. So I think you pass at least your second time, most likely your first time. So that wasn't bad. The tests are expensive, and that kind of sucks. Sometimes there's a scholarship to help afford those. And sometimes the college will kind of help with a grant or something like that. And then after you license, you have your license for a year, then you'll start renewing through the state process. Do you have any questions on those tests? They're long. You can't take more than 2 in a day now. It used to be you could take multiple ones in a time. How many of you are elementary? Are you planning on licensing in another thing like special ed or ESL or something? One of the things that we had a principal tell us one time is never ever just get one endorsement. Always go for 2, because if you go to apply at Wichita or at wherever, and you say, hey, here's my elementary degree, I'd like to teach kindergarten through 6th grade, they may say, I can't use you for that, but I can use you for reading or for ESL. You do that for a couple of years and then you move into your dream position. So they really generally push licensing in a couple areas. I have my English license and then my ESL license. And so a lot of times, like at McPherson, to get my ESL endorsement, it was 2 more classes. And so to me, it just made sense to take 2 more classes and get a whole nother endorsement. I don't want to teach ESL, I have, but it's not my passion, it's not my dream. I think I was pretty well prepared, and I think half of that is probably the college prepared me for that, and the other half is I took advantages of the college's what they were offering. As far as like anytime there's a workshop or anytime there's like a guest speaker type thing, I went to those so I could try to build a resume of all this extra stuff. So like when I went in, I had already been certified in like quantum learning, cooperative learning, and then I went down to Oklahoma for a thing called Great Expectations. And so it's more than just like, in my opinion, if especially the way Kansas teachers are kind of under attack right now, I think you need to do more to get your resume better than just, I have one thing, I went to all my classes, and I'm ready to teach. Like if you really want to have a competitive resume, I really suggest doing everything you can. You guys have a student group here, probably?
Yes.
Teachers? If you can be active in that. I got active in the KNEA thing, and that served me well times 10 with other stuff. And so if you can be involved in that, it really helps. Few things, like I think half of it is you got to develop a good relationship with the people at the college, because they're the ones looking for jobs. They're the ones people are going to, Hutch may call and say, hey Terry, do you know of anybody who is ready for that? If it's somebody that's been like sleeping in class or just texting in class or something, I'm probably not going to recommend them. And so make a really good impression. I think that's important, being there, being on time and everything. But then the other part is just paying attention. I would say on the praxis, probably a third of it was stuff I learned in college, and the others was stuff I had observed in the college or in like high school classrooms that I had gone and watched in. So there's like a couple questions about Piaget or Erikson or Maslow's theories or whatever, and those are kind of like book study stuff, right? That if you're smart with a book, you can get it. The rest of it, in my opinion, is very hands-on. And so, you've seen it, you see how it works, and then you apply it. And so if you just rely on, I'm going to read my book and take the test, then it may not be as strong for you as if you really love being in the classroom and watching it. Student teaching for me, I had 6 different preps through the whole time, and that's part of being in a small school. And so like I had the student teach in college prep English, which is for seniors, regular senior English, which is kind of the kids that aren't planning on going to college. They're more focused on like resume and trade writing. Junior English, sophomore English, yearbook and journalism, and forensics. And so all those different things. And so that was a nightmare for a like new person to come in and try to figure out how to do that. When a lot of my friends who were like at Wichita or Hutch had like junior English, that's all they had the lesson plan for. And so they'd go home at night, they'd craft a really awesome junior English lesson plan, and then they were done. Where he was like, okay, we're doing Hamlet, we're doing Brett Lit, we're doing all these things, and so it was a nightmare for that. But it was also really good preparation. I was always told to never do 3 things your first year of teaching: get married, have a kid, or buy a house. And I've just heard those are the worst 3 things. A lot of my friends, I had one friend who did all 3 in her first year, and she was still very successful. So that's something to keep in mind, is like try to minimize some of your life stress, because if teaching is really your passion, it will consume you. And that's, in my opinion, that's a good thing. So that the transition as far as me was a little different maybe, because it's my understanding that usually when you start student teaching, you kind of build in, and then you kind of sit and watch for a while, and then you start teaching, and then you kind of taper back off so they get back to use the regular teacher. Well, our regular teacher, she actually retired at semester, but we knew that ahead of time, and so I was hired to fulfill her role, so I never tapered down. And so one thing I did, she was a former teacher of the year in Kansas for journalism. She was very, very good. But she had definitely a path that she wanted to take. Kids do not get out of their desks. Everybody raise their hands before they talk. I mean, she was very traditional, I guess, and my style is very not traditional. And so I flipped the classroom as far as, like, her desk was in the back, mine became in the front. She had nothing on the walls. Now I have no white space on my wall. So it was like a very intentional, okay, new person up here. And then I had a group of kids that had a really difficult time paying attention to someone who was only a couple years older than they were. And so to get control of them, I just flipped everything in the classroom every week. So I went up every Sunday and moved the desks, moved the staplers, moved the posters, moved everything, just because it kind of told them, hey, you're not the one doing this, I am. And so it worked really well.
When you're lesson planning, usually like at Hutch, there's a curriculum that I have to go by. So I have to teach certain things, which makes it a lot easier to lesson plan. But the best type of planning is planning ahead. So like we have finals week this week, and so I'm planning this week for the start of next trimester, since our school goes in trimesters. But definitely planning ahead, and don't worry about creativity because there's a lot of people to bounce ideas off of, like any of the teachers that you work with. I have a great group and we always bounce ideas off of one another, and there's so many websites like Teachers Pay Teachers that you can get ideas from, so like resources are out there for you.
Our district's small. We have just one teacher per grade level at the high school level, as far as, like, I'm the only sophomore or junior or English or high school English teacher. And so you can't bounce off as much. Our principal does not require lesson plans. The K-6 building does. And so they have to submit their lesson plans either by Monday morning before they leave Friday or something. What I do, I have a Word template. And I do not go into detail, and I do it usually every Sunday, and then I send them out Sunday night to all the parents, and I copy our administrator on just because. And it basically just says, what are we doing each day? And that's one thing I think is really important, is to try to involve your parents as much as you can, because then the kids won't give you as much of a hard time if the parent likes you, because if the parent or the kid comes home and starts complaining about Mr. Coffee, such a whatever, well, then the parent can say, stop it, leave him alone, he's doing whatever. And so I just kind of put down what we're doing that day, and then, like, for my juniors, I have 3 different classes of juniors. And so first hour, I only have 6 kids that class. They're incredibly low and needy as far as academics. And so what I do with them is very different, even with the same lesson plan that I'm going to do with my third hour, which is 15, but there's only 1 girl in that class. And so it's incredibly high testosterone. You're up, you're bopping kids down as whack-a-mole to try to sit them down. And so the lesson plans you do are very different. So I know what I'm doing. We're talking about the Declaration of Independence today. What I do with different classes is very different. But that's not for me written out, because we don't require it.
Have a plan B, C, D, E, F, because it does happen, and you'll know it by the attitude of your students, because they'll just like slump, and you feel the slump too. But you just make sure you have other things that you can, pull out from.
One thing we talk about is not being a slave to your lesson plans. And so, like, if when the kids come in, if you can tell they are bouncing out of, you can tell it's going to be a fight that day. And so I'm not going to do the fun, interactive lesson plan with them jumping around out of their desks and everything, because I think someone's probably going to get hit or something. So we're going to do kind of the more structured routine. So you kind of have your toolbox of, okay, they're doing all this. If you see they're kind of starting to fall asleep, well, we're going to get up and we're going to change this lesson a little bit. So that's, I guess, my best suggestion as far as avoid the hiccup if you can. Like she said, have your plan B and everything. And then one of the things with the creativity that we talked about is, don't feel that every lesson you do has to be worthy of putting on Pinterest or Teachers Pay Teacher. Not everything is going to be amazing. Sometimes the best thing you can do that day is to get a kid to read and to have everybody live through the day. Sometimes that's just how it works. And so I try to, like, once a month have a unit that is just awesome. And so I spend my weekend making that cool or something. And that way over 2 or 3 years of teaching, you'll have a year full of really cool stuff. But if you are one of the people like most English teachers that are type A personalities, everything has to be perfect. I don't know about you, but I think that's how most of us work. And so you feel kind of bad if you are like, oh, this lesson's just kind of, we're just reading today. Well, some days that's survival. And then you make it better the next day. So don't have too much pressure on yourself.
When I started, we had an instructional coach that was new to, and she was actually considered my mentor. But really, she would just come in my room quite frequently, ask me how things are going. She'd observe my students and myself while I taught. She was really just there to support me, which was great. And she gave me ideas too, but it's nice to have a mentor that's not there to like ridicule you. Just that it's a great support system. But like I said, there's 11 teachers in my department, so I've got like this just group around me that's really, I felt like I had more than just one mentor, which is great. And I also kept in contact with my friends from Wichita State, and even in a sense, they were kind of mentors because we would talk about everything that was going on and give each other suggestions. So mentors are like, yeah, they go beyond even the school, I believe.
To move from your first year provisional license to a full issued 5-year license, you have to go through a mentorship program. So your district will provide something. The quality of it's different with different districts. We're very small. We have 40 teachers in our whole K-12 system. And so our mentorship program really focuses on like, here's how to run the copier, here's how to request a sub. And then your friends that you kind of develop in a small system are like my closest friend that I bounce ideas off of is not the other English teacher, it's the social studies teacher who's next door to me. And so we come over and we'll, vent or complain or something. And that's one thing that's important too, is to find someone in your building who won't judge you when you're having a bad day. Because some days you're like, oh, I'm going to change the world. These kids are awesome. I love this job. And the next day it's like, I'm going to kill them if they don't move. And so you have to find someone who's not going to like report you for those things. And so we just kind of vent. We have lunch together every day. We just complain and
So are you
laugh.
saying teaching is like a bipolar attitude?
Yes, very, very much so.
We actually don't have, I student taught at Wichita East High School, and they actually had set times for collaboration. However, at Hutchinson High School, we do not. We did adopt a new curriculum last year, and they allowed us to map our curriculum together in the summertime, which was great. But really, as far as collaborating, I teach regular seniors, and then I'll teach freshmen. But I'll collaborate with the other freshman teachers, but I'm kind of on my own with my seniors because they're not honors or IB. But yeah. We just bounce ideas off of one another and see what's good and what's not.
Ours is not structured. We do a CLI process. It's like curriculum something institute, and so we have to write our own curriculum in our district because we didn't want to adopt Common Core just the way it was. So every time we get together, which is usually like twice in 9 weeks maybe, is just spent on writing curriculum. So it's not as beneficial as we would like to see it. It's not like, here, what awesome ideas you have, what do we need to talk? Usually it's like, hurry down and type your paper real fast because, the curriculum's 160 some pages. And the other English teacher and I, we both have our plan period the same hour, and that's just kind of by chance. That's not necessarily intentional or required. And so, we have a door that actually joins our 2 rooms, so we'll just open and ask questions or talk or something, but if you're in a really busy time, we don't do that usually.
The other thing I forgot to mention, I actually co-teach with a special education teacher for freshmen, and we don't have the same plan, so we have to find a lot of time outside of school to collaborate, but it is great. Co-teaching is wonderful. If you could ever get the opportunity to do it, you should, because I've learned so much more about exceptionalities from her perspective, whereas I didn't learn in college.
Can you explain what you mean by that?
She and I, we have a class within a class, so we have special ed students and then we have our regular students, and we just teach together. She's really familiar with the accommodations that the students need, whereas I'm kind of familiar, but she has more of the background, and we just work together as a unit and teach. So it's really great. Really classroom management is something you'll have to figure out on your own, and it's one thing they can't really teach you, but my suggestion is I don't know, because I'm young and I look like my seniors, I have to put the hammer down. But I also want to build those relationships too, because I'm not there to be your friend, I'm there to teach you. And sometimes that can be really hard for them to understand. But if you have, like, last year, I had one girl, and it was a fight, it was a struggle. But make sure your principals know about the situation, document everything that goes on. But really the best thing you can do is try to find something in common with that student that maybe you can, I don't know, try to figure things out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but you just have to keep the faith, and some days all you can do is just get through. So
You can never get harder on them. You can only get easier on them. And so one of my best friends, he's started in our district, he's 3rd grade. And he's admitted, because he's struggling almost daily with the kids he'll tell them to clip down or something and they'll just say no. And he's a good teacher. I mean, he was a teacher of promise. And so that's one thing he said is I started too easy. I had the privilege, I worked in a grocery store for 6 years prior to that managing teenagers, and so I kind of had my learning experience there with, my first year, you just kind of want to be nice because nobody else gets it the way I get it, and I can work them better and I'll be, on their level, and that bombs. Because the second you have to correct them, you don't have any power. And so then the second year I was, Nazi on them, and then the 3rd year it worked much better. And so you kind of got to find that happy medium, because you got to light a fire under them without making their blood boil. And so that's the hard part. With freshmen, we do not get along. It's almost a joke in our school that freshmen do not come in my room. They kind of swarm around me at the high school. But then sophomores, we tolerate each other. Juniors, we appreciate each other. Seniors, we love each other. And so that's we taper up. And so how I treat different groups, I hate to say, is very different, because sophomores are not going to get the same privileges that juniors will get. And that's just because they can't quite grasp it. Because if they come in day one ready to be your best buddy, that's fine until there's a problem. So, and there will be problems. The best thing you do with them is relationships, and that's what I focus on all the time. They learned that I love the Batman stuff, and that has been my ticket to success with them. Because then everything is about that. As far as anything they bring or whatever is, oh, I saw this Batman thing, and then they formed a connection with you. So that for me works.
Just be fair, firm, and consistent. Consistency is the rule.
They also learn that you don't like ET, right?
I have a significant phobia of ET, and so they do that. And I mean, like, the way our kids work is much different, I think, than a bigger school. I did one of my student teaching at Wichita West, and so I get big schools, and I feel more at home in a small school. Probably that's because where I graduated from. But like an example of different relationships with different students that I don't think in my master's class we were talking about. Different expectations, and I have a lot of friends with Saline, and they're like, I can't believe you let your kids do this. An example of that would be during parent-teacher conferences Monday. We have these conferences, we're in all these meetings, I'm in my room, and I see my car drive off. And I left my keys, and I wish in Canton you can do that. I mean, there's very low crime in Canton. Well, a kid took it home, cleaned it, and brought it back. I mean, that's just like, if you form that relationship with them, they will do anything to work with you. And I mean, that's a kid I've worked a lot with some therapy stuff and everything. But relationships go so far for you, because then if anybody in that class is giving me a hard time, that kid will look over and say, knock it off, And so the kids do have to work for you, because they police themselves. So
our experiences are great to juxtapose together, because I graduated from Bueller High School, and when I stepped into Wichita East, I thought I was going to be eaten alive. And then I just realized that I wanted to be in a big school after that. So, yeah.
Would you let a student take your car to go?
No. No way in heaven, but hey, I'm sure they'd love to.
The other example I share always is this was my second year of teaching. This was last year, and my desk was up front, and we have a kid. Let's call him Bob, and he's a big kid. He's one of the football players, and he's the honoriest kid. He's the definition of ornery, and I have a great relationship with him, great relationship with his parents. And I have a very good relationship with my principal. Well, I'm standing in front of the room. We're kind of transitioning. Classes just started. We're turning in papers. They have this little 5-minute thing they do at the beginning. And I see Bob come over and pick up one of the smaller kids, and he goes behind him and he lifts him up. And I just, out of the corner of my eye, I see that, and on his back. And of course, I mean, in your mind, it's like, oh, just that. Well, of course, it sounds like. And so my brain just went, I just hit a kid. And so that was during lunch hour. So we go down, we're walking to lunch, and this kid's kind of ribbing me like, ooh, you know, I got your job now, Coffee. And I mean, because we do get along very well. And we go down, and my principal is standing at the back of the lunch line, and we're now at the back. And Bob goes up, and he's kind of looking at me like, your boss is right here. And so he goes up, and he says, Mr. Kempy, Mr. Coffee hit me today. Mr. Kempy said, did he really? So why'd he hit you? Well, I picked this kid up and everything. My principal, whack, just backhands him across the head. And so at a small school, you can get away with so much different stuff. We actually went through a training on that of how to use physical stuff appropriately. So, what?
Was it man-training?
No, we did the restraint training and everything, but no, we went through like the love languages and everything about how so many high school kids, that's how they, you know, guys when they're walking through the hall, they hit each other, they slap each other in the butt or whatever. And so if you can appropriately figure out how to do that, because I'm not going to slap a kid in the butt, you can figure out, like, that's how teenage males transfer connection, is by that. And so when I was in college, I was like, never touch a kid. I'm going to teach for 60 years and never touch a kid. Well, you're missing a huge chunk of it if you don't also make that connection. But if I was in a bigger district and I didn't know my kids, their favorite color, where they lived, all those things, if I didn't know everything about them, I would never do that. So, you know, different stuff in different places.
That's mine.
Oh, okay.
I'm so sorry. I'm horrible.
Hey, you are showing them that it's okay to be a real person.
It is, and you know what? It's okay for your students to see that too, because my father passed away in November, and I had never received so much love in my life. When those kids have respect for you, I mean, they show it, express it in every way that they can, and it's so important. Well, I have to be honest with you, this is an area that I have to work on. This is my second year of teaching, and I've contacted parents through email, and I started a teaching blog through like one of my master's workshops, but my population of students, a lot of their parents aren't involved in their lives, and so there's like a missing piece there. There are days I actually feel like a mother to many of them, but like I like parent-teacher conferences, like if I think the best thing you can do, if there's something that you just find that's not like right with a kid, or something that just doesn't feel like, you know, maybe something's going on, you need to call that parent like immediately. I had a young man that started skipping my class, and I called his mother, and surely enough, I mean, he got back, but there were some things going on in his life that she wasn't aware about, so we were able to help each other. But yeah, that's something I have to work on, and it's scary calling parents because I just don't like that. Like, I don't know. It's just something, it's a work in progress.
I send the lesson plans home every Sunday, so they are at least getting one email from me a week. And then I started this little thing I call Terrifying Tuesdays. Now, that's kids start calling it, actually. I just called it Tuesdays. I call 3 parents every Tuesday night. That's something I've committed to do right after school, or if I stay a little after. And usually a couple of them are real positive, and one of them is I'd like to see improvement in whatever. And so the kids usually don't know. I mean, I don't tell the kids ahead of time, and so I do. It usually is around dinner time, and so you'll just hear, I'm on the phone, Mr. Coffee. And so you can just hear the kid in the background sweating bullets. And usually it's a positive thing. Hey, I saw this, or I did this. I mean, it costs you no money. Some people send stuff home that's fine, but it may get expensive if you have a lot of kiddos. And so I just call this just to kind of stay in contact with them, and that way they know they can contact you. The only negative thing I've had in 3 years is there's a family that's kind of well known as being a little bit of a troublemaker, and they like to very much have, I guess, continual drama, I'll just say. Well, we had a reading day in our class. We have usually one a week when we're in AR, or accelerated reader time. I didn't let that student knit instead of read. I made that student read. And the parent, that was on a Friday, that parent was planning on going to the Monday's board meeting to have me fired for a HIPAA violation, which is Health Information Privacy Act. So if you're trying to connect the dots, it doesn't connect, right? And so she actually called that Friday night. I was just getting ready to go home, and she called, and I mean, everything is F this, you're bullying my son. I'm like, I don't know what all you're talking about. Well, our superintendent actually was actually coming through the building. He looked in, he said, "Do you need me?" And I'm mouthing yes and everything. So he comes in and sits, and I mean, she's just yelling. And so the best thing I learned from that is never do anything over the phone, because it's hard to afterwards say, well, I never said that or whatever. I email a lot. Parents do text at our district, and some people that freaks them out. My thought is I can block a number incredibly easy, and I would much, much, much rather have a text from a parent or a student rather than a phone call, because if it ever went to court, I have a physical document that I can say, here's what it is. And so that's one thing that parents have my cell phone number, students have my cell phone number, and so, I've never run into problems with that so far. They've never harassed me on it. They've called frequently or texted frequently, but I've never been intimidated or harassed. So.
Our department meetings only happen when we have professional development days, which usually tend to be after conferences or finals weeks. Extra duty is totally up to me as a teacher if I want to take it on. I don't have to, but right now I've been subbing for Friday school, which is nice because I get paid extra. I also was a Scholars Bowl assistant coach, but I realized that was too time consuming, so I was able, I did it this year. Next year I'm not going to, but really what's nice is it's all really up to you. I don't have to go to the lunchroom and do lunch duty or anything like that, so it's really nice.
Ours is much different. Okay, every Wednesday morning starts at 6:30, your meetings. Class starts at 8 for us. We do an 8 to 3:30 day with kids. The first, and part of it's just, I'm on a couple different committees, but I'm on our administrative council. There's 5 of us, 2 teachers, and then 3 principals and superintendents. So we talk about those the first Wednesday. The next Wednesday morning is CCC, where we approve classes or deal with curriculum stuff, Curriculum Coordinating Council. The next Wednesday is Professional Development Council, and that's something that as a second-year teacher I started chairing. So anything professional development comes through mine first, which means any speaker you want to bring in, any PDC points, which will make sense in a couple years for you, you got it. That all comes through my email. And so there's that. Then there's the crisis team that you sit on. Then there's the parent site council that you sit on. Then there's, I don't know if your districts now, we don't hire subs much anymore if we can get away with it, because it's much cheaper to just have a teacher cover it. And so a lot of times you'll get an email, my plane period is 7th hour, and so I'll get an email 6th hour, so-and-so went home, I need you to go down there and cover that. And so that's kind of now out the window. We do get compensated for that, to be fair, and that's $10 for us. Some districts it's 20 or 30 or 40, but that's that. And then there's always someone in your classroom before or after. There's always kids in your classroom during lunch for us. We actually, until last year, had to go down to the lunchroom and cover that. Then I'm our district's negotiator, which means when we negotiate with the board, that goes through me. And so you do a lot of different committees. And you're on the scholarship committee. There's the NHS, National Honor Society needs teachers to select. So when you're in small school, everything, which is kind of cool, because then you're also a class sponsor. You have to be a class sponsor. And so you're at all your classes' concession stands, and Scholars Bowl forensics and those types of things. So on one hand, it's awesome because the stuff you learn about the kids outside of the classroom is 10 times more powerful than what you're going to learn inside, because they've got the guard on when they're inside. But when you're driving them to a forensics meet or Scholars Bowl meet or something, you really get to see them, and that helps you a lot. But when it comes time for your personal life, that just doesn't happen a lot of times. That kind of takes the back seat. And so.
I am on some committees, one student advisory council meeting once a month. Yeah, that I get paid for.
We don't get paid for our committees. So.
No, it's amazing the difference though.
Yeah,
and that's one thing you'll start to do with your other teacher friends. Anytime we go to a forensics meet, we kind of gather in the hospitality room, okay, what's your base salary at your district? How many sick days do you get? And so we just kind of compare. And part of that's the negotiator in me, so you can rub it in your administrator's face and say, Marion, they get 12 days, we only get 10 or whatever. So,
does it help?
Yeah, last year we got our first raise in 5 years.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Good for you.
That was 3%. So, almost at minimum wage.
Yes, I cried and I called my mom a lot. Let's just be honest. I don't know. There's just things they can't teach you. And when the door shuts that first day, you're like, it's you against those students. It feels like it, but it's not. You just have to, like, I don't know, find something that helps you. Like, I have, like, little quotes that I like to keep around that motivates me each day. But and find support within your school, the people that can help you. My husband's a big support to me, too. So it's hard, but it'll get easier. And that's the truth.
You gotta keep a file. You probably have one, and it's right inside of my desk, and it says, "Why do I do this?" And every positive note, anything somebody's written, like one of the students, I make a copy of it and I stick it in that. And about once in 9 weeks or so, when I'm just like, "Screw this, I'm done," then I pull that out and I read that, and so that helped a lot. The stuff that I wasn't prepared for is more, I guess, of the emotional side. When the kids come to you and talk about, I got a call one morning, it was 2 a.m, and a female had just been raped and she was still at the party. And so I'm sitting there like, how do you deal with that? And so dealt with that. We had a student suicide. We've had a lot of fights. We had a lot of drug issues. And so when that comes to you first, you have like your little mandated reporter training maybe that you'll get eventually about what you have to report, what you don't have to report or whatever. But that was what I was totally not ready for, because then they're sitting there and they'll talk about like, well, they don't have any health insurance, they can't buy their dental plans, or they can't buy food, and so it's real easy. You just want to say, I'll cut a check to cover it, but you do that for one kid, you've got 100 more waiting after them, and so that's what comes home with you, in my opinion. I don't take any grading, any lesson planning, anything home. I do everything at school, and so I'll stay there till midnight if I have to, but I'll never grade at home because I try to keep those very separate. But when you come home, you can't just say, I'm going to not remember that student's living in, whatever. So that, I think, is the hard part, is that you become kind of the counselor, the parent, like we've talked about.
I had a student, she approached me last week and said that her parents actually refused to feed them, like, only during dinner time. That's all they can eat. And so I just went to the grocery store and kind of made put a lot of food in my cabinet so she could take some home so she can, I just think it's wrong. Kids should have a snack, and so, it got to the point where she'd eat so much at dinner she'd gorge herself, make herself sick. And so, yeah, you carry a heavy load. You can, and you just have to figure out a way to balance it. I would have stayed more calm, because I was a little firecracker. It didn't take much to just make me go pop. And it's just that way. You just have to, like, control yourself. And, kids will push your buttons, but you just have to find a way to make sure that they don't see it. Staying calm.
Things went well where I was. The only thing I'd do differently probably is, like, I put so much pressure on. You'd watch these other teachers. When principals are sticking you in people's rooms right now, it's because that they think is probably one of the best they have. And so you sit there and you watch that and you're like, that's what I need to be doing right away. Your first year of teaching is about figuring out what you're supposed to teach. Your second year of teaching is figuring out how you're supposed to teach it. Your third year is figuring out how you are going to teach it. And that has really served me well, as far as, because you want to go out and just be perfect, because you've seen everybody else be perfect. And so when that doesn't happen, then I put all this, because I am type A to the 9. And so when I couldn't get that, like, oh, why is their bell so awesome? My file cabinet's empty compared to their cool stuff. And so that was something I worked on.
I would say, like I said before, student support. I was surprised, but I got nominated for, our district has this Davis Foundation Teacher of the Year award, and I didn't get accepted to go through the entire process, but if you get it, you can get like $2,000. It's amazing. It's really a prestigious award, and that was surprising to me that someone thought me to be worthy enough as a first-year teacher to deserve something like that. But usually you're better than what you think you are. I have a tendency of maybe thinking that I I don't know, I always self-reflect and try to improve. But you'll be amazed at how well you feel on that last day of school when you realize you survived.
You get, I don't think, maybe besides like a doctor or somebody, there's nobody who gets better at managing their time. Because you can do, I mean, all the little jokes go around on Facebook and everything as far as Teacher Olympics, that they can go to the bathroom and grade papers and do all those things in 2 minutes. It becomes true. And it does. And the other thing is, especially in, I think especially in smaller schools, but I've seen it in big schools, you become like almost a celebrity in their little world. Little kids, it works the same way. And that's one thing that kind of freaks you out, because I purposely, when I bought my house, I bought McPherson, not Canton or Gallup, because I didn't want the first time I'm bringing in a pack of beer to be on Facebook. And so that's one thing I was very conscious of. But then the kids found out where I lived, and my yard gets forked now all the time, and I mean, they do those things, and that's, I mean, Canton Gallup, that's like a big woo, funny thing. So they fork your yard a lot. But I don't know, so you just, yeah, you stick. Because then sometimes they put a sign that says you've been forked over, and then we talked about, irony and that not being appropriate. So it was a lesson actually of colloquial terms. So they do that. For my birthday one year, they flipped everything in the room. I mean, my plants were upside down. I mean, well, my birthday's tomorrow, so I'm eager to get back and watch my room. They really get attached to you, and that surprises me a lot, as far as.
And they come back too, every year. Yeah. It's probably, I don't know how different it is with our districts. I have Chromebooks in my classroom. I have Smartboard. I have access to iPads. So, I mean, we have lots of ways to incorporate technology. And our textbook series actually has an online portion, which we're always using. And we use Google Drive to write our papers. We don't print out much paper anymore. So technology plays a huge piece. And what I loved about my master's program through Friends University is I was able to take some workshops over technology and learn some great tips and tricks. And so it's been really fun. I enjoyed it.
So when you say you use Google Drive and you don't print out papers, you grade them.
I grade them on there. We have a grade sheet that we use.
I'd say ditto, but I still have them print everything. I read still on paper, and one day they may make us change that, but until then,
it's hard.
It is a nightmare. So, yeah, we have a Chromebook one-to-one initiative at the 712 level. iPad carts, teachers have iPads. We were first going to go with iPads, and then it just became like a big toy, and so we kind of got rid of iPads and went to Chromebooks because we couldn't afford laptops. And we have smart boards in every room. So that's
pretty
first thing we're the same.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, what are some of your favorite things that you do in your classroom?
I love decorating, and I love playing music, and my kids love that too. Like, your environment is everything, and when they can walk in and feel comfortable, I think that's pretty essential. Like, if you were to walk in my classroom now, there's color everywhere, and they like that too. And I have pictures of my family and stuff too, so they realize I'm a human being. So that's something.
Yeah, we do that, and I do a lot of bets with the students. If they lose, a lot of times, or if I lose, then we'll play I'll play them a round of Xbox that night, of Xbox Live or something. And so there's different things. We do a lot of things on the weekend. I bring my dog some days. I have a Labrador. We're very relaxed, and so we can do different stuff. And so kind of making everything like an exciting challenge to be in there. I mean, we're a different building, but it works real well. And every building too, one thing I didn't mention, every building you're ever going to be in has a problem. And so one district's problem may be we've got a huge alcohol problem or whatever. Our district's problem is apathy. Our students are farmers and oil field workers, and they don't care. Why do I need high school? Why do I need college? And so strategically, that's why I kind of was weird and different, is because you've got to get them excited. If I was at a high-performing prep school, there's no way I would be doing the same stuff I'm doing, because they wouldn't need that. They would need, in my opinion, kind of the structure and just the content, where my kids, the content is so secondary, because if they don't care, then you're never going to hear them. And we had a big attitude problem, and so that was solved pretty expeditiously. And what was that?
Our student handbook says they're only supposed to use them in the hallways, but it's our school. We have 1,500 students, and it's just it's a mess. And really, it's kind of become each teacher's discretion. Which in my case, it's put them up. You get a warning. It goes in my box, or if it doesn't go in my box, it goes to the administrator. So I mean, and sometimes I like to incorporate them in my classroom because they're kind of inevitable. They're there. I let the kids listen to music when they work. And they usually work, but it's just it's a battle, tug of war, really, at our school with cell phones.
I'm probably one of half of the teachers that do not allow them in. The one thing to keep in mind is if you take that phone, you are now financially responsible for that phone. And it's like we have one teacher that she makes kids put them in like a little cell jail or something. And so, but the thing is, if somebody else swipes my phone as I'm leaving, that teacher is responsible, financially responsible for that because it was their policy. And so I don't do that. If it's a kid that I haven't really had problems with and I even see the indentation in their pocket, it just goes in my desk drawer the rest of the day and I get back to the end of the day. If it's a habitual offender and it's somebody I really know and I can work with real well, usually I make them unlock their phone. I put my photo on their Snapchat story and say no cell phones allowed because I know everybody else is seeing it during the day because they're all peeking at lunch or whatever, and then they're like, oh, don't take your phone into his class. And so I bet at our school we can do that. Big school, and the kids laugh about it. So if I was at a bigger school, I wouldn't be able to do that. Or if I didn't know my kids as well, I guess. And then one of the reasons I do not want to phone in, we had a fight one time. The teacher was actually out of the classroom for more than 30 minutes. Don't do that. And there was a fight, and it was filmed. They filmed it, and then they posted it. And it wasn't really so much of a fight, it was a beating. And the kids that fought did not get in nearly as much trouble. That's a misdemeanor right there. The filming and posting it without their permission on private grounds was a felony. And so that's why I don't want the camera in my room. Because it's not a phone, it's a camera, it's everything. And so that's why we're very strict about it for some of us that dealt with that incident. So.
Maybe this isn't the thing to say, but make sure you want to teach before you get into it. Because once you start student teaching, you're going to know, and you don't want to spend your money on something that you found I can't do. You know, there's some individuals in my cohort that realized that right before student teaching.
Wow.
So it's a lot of time and money spent. So really make sure you're in it for ever, however long.
If you've been to a couple classrooms and you are looking at that clock every day, every teacher's going to have one of those boring days or something, but if every day you are looking at that clock, can't wait to get back out to your life, then that to me is a red flag. When I say I'm addicted to my classroom, I am addicted to my kids, to my classroom. You can't wait to be there. Summer, I was there 3 or 4 days, and we're still allowed to be in the building during summer, and I had stuff I had to work on, but it doesn't matter. You don't need a vacation. You're just, you get to those times where you're like, I gotta leave for their safety, not mine. It's true. It's absolutely true.
No.
I had multiple offers. So.
Same here.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The only thing I'll say about Emporia, and I've been on their campus many times, it's a good campus. Emporia is the only one in the state that if you don't pass your praxis, you don't get a degree. And so, that friend that I had from Hutchinson College, she never passed her praxis. She would not have a bachelor's degree if she didn't pass her praxis. And I think passing your praxis is something that's very attainable. Mm-hmm. But, that would be a problem if you went all there, you spent all your money, you didn't pass that test, or you decided not to take it, and then you wouldn't have your bachelor's. And so 2 of our teachers maybe in our building are from Emporia, but in my opinion, it's not like, oh, they're godly and the rest of us are just heathens. So
you should pick a college because it's best fit for you, not for any other reason than that. And Wichita State, I'm biased, but it was amazing. And you'll be required to student teach in the Wichita Public Schools, and it's just the thing I needed.
Yeah, go wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
As long as you have that degree, that's all they're going to need.
Yep. I have a lot of friends that accepted jobs provisionally, like that are like English language arts, special ed, but they're going through Fort Hays State University and doing the online program to get their master's in special ed. That's something that I know has worked for them because they can still teach and they're going through that process. But I think if you're going to do it, it's going to take you longer, I would say.
Yeah, I would,
get done.
for the bachelor's, I would, if it were me, I would get my elementary ed degree and then I would get a license in SPED too. So you'll have a dual license. And then when you're ready to go do your master's, whether that's the first year, whether that's 10 years from then you can get your master's or your specialist degree in that. But I would, because all that district's going to want, they don't need a degree in special ed. All they need is that, they need that license. So, and for most districts, that's where they're hiring right now because they get extra, well, they used to get extra money from the state for that. And so, because like with the ESL, like with the ESL license, we don't have any ESL students. We are 100% English language proficiency. But our district gets extra money because they have me on their paperwork. So it's a perk. So, and also when they start talking about budget cuts and everybody starts looking, am I next or are you next and everything, and you kind of say, I bring in $500 extra a year or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a little joke, but kind of not.
Actually, I wouldn't say that.
There's a logic behind that, but I don't know. It depends on your administration, really. So,
In our case, it's the newest, hired.
well, the biggest ones are your SPED degree, which is not usually a K-12. That's usually a K-6 or a 712, or a ESL endorsement, which is my ESL endorsement is 712.
Yes. Mine's K through 12.
Yours K-12. One thing that you can also do though is if you're elementary, you could also get your like K-9 English, because like our middle school English teacher, she teaches 7 and 8 middle school English. She actually was originally licensed as a elementary teacher, but she had that extra endorsement, and so the district was able to bring her in for that. And so as long as you're endorsed in that, then you can. And like one of our middle school teachers, he's endorsed in just about everything, and that's because our district has moved him around a lot. And so like this year, they're like, Mr. Unner, you're going to teach kindergarten PE and 5th grade language arts. Great, I have a job. Next year, Mr. Unner, you're teaching 3rd grade grammar and 5th grade world history. I mean, they move around a lot. And so chances are you're going to have a lot of different experiences by the end of your career.
Is it still, I don't know if it's still the case, but like you can pass your praxis and get endorsed in other subjects, or have they changed that?
You have to have the license in it now.
Oh,
you
you
have to
do?
have the degree in it after 2013.
Oh, okay, so it's not lucky.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I couldn't remember. So wait a minute.
Okay. Last chance. Any questions that you can think of?
Get out in the classroom a lot, even if you're not required to. Go see if you can sit somewhere, watch, make copies, there's stuff.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks,
Appreciate you coming and sharing your words of wisdom with us. So.
I was going to say, if you ever get a chance to observe, the classroom is awesome.
Thank you. How'd you enjoy it still? Didn't scare you away.
Every week has something new. I mean, the fire drill that ended up not being a drill, the fight the first day. Yeah,
It's just an exciting life of being a teacher.
Keep track of your stories in case you need to write a book someday too.
Yeah.
That's the only way you're going to make any money.
I love Teachers Pay Teachers, but on Facebook she's an elementary school teacher. It's called Schoolgirl Style, and she has like tons of creative ideas for like decorating your classroom.
That's
I
on
just love-
Facebook?
Yeah, she has like a Facebook page, it's Schoolgirl Style. Teachers pay teachers. What else?
You just Google search anything.
Yeah, you
How do I
can find
teach
anything.
nouns? And then
You get tons of free. Just don't pay. Yeah, really, I don't pay like I should.
yeah. Did you guys see what passed today, this morning? Common Core is now, they've put it in to repeal it, which that has a bunch of different problems with that. Our district, I don't know if you guys have done, our district spent 5 years aligning our curriculum to Common Core. Now if it passes, if it gets signed, you cannot be funded. You can't receive a dime of federal money if you have anything in your district that is Common Core aligned. So for example, our last year we spent $90,000 on K-12 English books. Those $90,000 would have to go in the trash because they have a sticker on them at the front that says Common Core aligned. Lexia 5, which is how most districts teach their kids to read, is Common Core aligned. Singapore Math is Common Core aligned. So if your district has anything in it that is Common Core aligned, you would not receive a dime of state money. So that's a problem. The other problem, it's one of the House bills, is in Johnson County. A teacher would be criminally liable. Have you heard about this?
Yes, I have.
You'd be criminally liable for anything taught in your classroom, even if it was approved or required in your curriculum. So English teachers especially are on the target. Let's say we teach, I had a student get pulled from my classroom because he thought the parents said I was teaching witchcraft and Lucifer something. Because I was teaching Lord of the Flies, and it has the word Beelzebub in it, which means devil. I could have been legally, criminally liable, not just professionally. Because before, if they get ticked off something you do in your classroom, they just pull your license. Now I could go to jail. It hasn't passed yet. It's only in Johnson County area right now.
If you do what now?
If any parent has any objection to anything taught in your classroom,
Yes.
Anything.
anything.
Think of all the band books we teach.
Any band, the thing that started it was in their hallway, in the high school hallway in a Johnson County school, there was a sex ed poster, and it had the word oral sex on it. Daughter went home, she was a junior or something, went home, talked to dad. Uncle was a senator, and they brought that in. And so they were wanting to criminally sue the school for something. Well, it's an approved thing in their curriculum to have, I mean, that poster wasn't illegal. Think about politics, religion, sexualism, anything is going to be, I mean, so it should be defeated. But you've got to call your people. You've got to do those things. Just yesterday, any homeschool student now can be in any activity. And so the homeschool kids, you could be sitting there in your classroom, you're teaching clay pots that day, you legally would have to allow them to come in and do that. You don't know if you have any idea who the kid is. I teach forensics. The kid would be able to come to any forensics meet, even if they're not passing their schoolwork. My kids have to have a certain grade point average because they're public school kids. So those are the things that are changing every single day. And regardless of your political stance, you've got to be aware of that.
So what's the best way to be aware?
Well,
Go for it.
I'll do my NEH bit. If you're, I don't know if you were in NEH, right?
I was.
Yeah.
I was in college, but
Yeah.
I'm not now. And it's not for
Yeah.
political reasons, but I need to be more involved.
Yeah.
Let me just say, it's easy to like avoid the problem where you should face it, but yeah.
Are any of you yet in KNESP? As a student, it's what, $20 a year or something?
Yeah, it's
As
really
a-
cheap.
As a professional teacher, it's about $560 or so. They just take it out of they pay $40 out of my paycheck a month. It's not horrible. But it keeps you involved, even if you don't. I mean, some people get real finicky about, I don't want to be in a union, whatever. Well, someone has to fight for you. And right now, I hate to say it's not our governor. And so somebody has to be on your side and aware of what's going on. Because I get an email every day, and I go to training on the weekends, and I go to all those things. And they just talk about, here's what's happening, here's what you can do to be aware of it. They're not pushing anything down my throat.